That was a great hymn, a wonderful carol. It's probably just about my favorite to sing, because who doesn't want to go Gloria, Gloria all day long? My name is Fred Wooden. I'm the interim minister at Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation, and it's another beautiful day in Arizona and in our neighborhood. I think this may be my favorite Sunday of the year, the Sunday after Christmas, because the people who come to church the Sunday after Christmas mean it. Because they were here on Christmas Eve. They got a snoot full of Jesus and mangers, and they're still back again. But it's also the most forgiving congregation, because you know it's not going to be as big a show. It's more informal. It's a little more casual. It's a little more personal. And I love that too. I loved when I used to preach to 1,000 people on Christmas Eve, and I loved it even more when I spoke to 50 people the day after or the day after that. What does it Shakespeare say? We few, we happy few. We happy few here in this room or home on Zoom. I'm looking at myself on the screen and saying, if you're watching me right now, you must really like VUU, because it ain't because the minister is so cute. And you are a part of us too. Whether we can see you, we can feel you present in our community. And so we come together. Every Sunday, rain or shine, heat or cold, with hope or despair, we come here to be renewed and reminded of who we are and why we are the people we are. What a great thing to do. I am so glad you're here. I'm so glad to be with you. And I hope that you will be glad when the hour is over to have been together again. We're going to listen to some wonderful music by the Reverend Amy Carol Webb, who will be singing or playing, I'm not sure which, Reasons for the Seasons on our video feed.
Reasons for the season. Reasons for the season. Solstice, Saturnalia, Christmas, Hanukkah, Panchaganapati, Bodhi Day, Yule, Modronek, Shaba Yalda, Kwanzaa, Sol Invictus, Dongshi, Soya. Out of darkness comes the sun every new December. In the name of peace for all to come, Earth's people join together. Reasons for the season. Reasons for the season. Saints come hither, gods and goddesses, Basil, Nicholas, Lucia, Saturn, Amaterasu, Jai Ganesha, Odin, Spider-Woman, Old Ra, new day born of long, cold night, raised in celebration. Bring the coming of the light to the soul of every nation. Reasons for the season. Reasons for the season. La Befana flies the night, Santa Claus his sleigh. Emmanuel beneath star bright, and Israel's lamps aflame. Tapers lit for all to see. Voices blend in blessed be. Winter yields to coming spring, and faith is kept forever green. Reasons for the season. Reasons for the season. Reasons for the season. Reasons for the season.
Good morning. It's time for everyone at home to get a hold of a flame and be ready to put it to your chalice. Ooh, I can unmask at this part. As we read aloud together with feeling our chalice lighting words, we kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Only humming aloud.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. While shepherds kept their watching, or silent flocks by night, behold, through all the heavens there shone a holy light.
Hello again. My name's Ken St. John, and I am here to say welcome to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation this morning. Today's service had been advertised as Worship for All Ages, so I had decided to center my welcome on the diversity of ages in the room. And we, in fact, do have one really adorable young person here, and we're very glad you came, and you are most welcome here. People of all ages are welcome here, and I want to emphasize that. You might be a tiny baby, little kids, big kids, even teenagers. Plus grown-ups, older grown-ups, and really, really, really old grown-ups. They are all welcome here. They may be big, you may be small, you may be fast, you may be slow, you may be silly, or you may be serious. Everyone's welcome here this morning, and we're glad that you joined us. And the us that I'm talking about, of course, is not just us in the room. It includes people who are joining us on Zoom and people who might be watching on YouTube. So I want to do something a little different today and ask all of you to look up at that camera over on that's hanging from the ceiling. Do we have it up, Libby? And wave to the people on Zoom. Hi, everybody. And you can wave back, even though we can't see you. We're happy to have you with us. Thank you. All right, most Sundays we also have visitors among us, and this is a great time of year just to have holiday visitors that may have come in this morning, or people who are winter visitors enjoying our awesome weather. Or it might be people who have just stumbled in here for the first time who live locally and are looking for a community to join. We want to thank all of you, so I'm going to we want to welcome all of you warmly, so I'm going to ask if there are any in the room who are visiting today or new with us, if they would please stand and be warmly welcomed. Yay! It's their second time with us, so thank you for standing. Now on Zoom, I'm going to suggest if you're new and you popped into a Zoom, joined us on Zoom for the service, I suggest you use the chat feature, send a message to everyone and say hello. Maybe draw some attention to yourself so people can say hi and greet you warmly. All right, you also will all get a chance after the service to meet with members or to meet with Reverend Fred or to gather together either here or on Zoom, and we'll give you more details about that later. All right, so another thing about this service being that it's multi-generational and we have one young person in the room, they need to know is generally once they've left, the room gets very quiet because everybody's practicing good listening, and the only person who should be talking is whoever's at the microphone. Now, babies, which we don't see any in the room, but sometimes they can get squeaky and noisy, and we have a baby comfort room over here for them because they don't understand about good listening. They're just little babies. Noisemakers go in there, close the door, nobody out here can hear them. All right, let's move it on to that, baby comfort room. We talk about that every week, but not everybody realizes we also have a grown-up comfort room. Through that door to your right, in that corner, there's a cozy little room where people can sit and chat, because sometimes people of any age can feel sad or worried or a little scared, and they might wish they could talk privately to someone about their feelings. And there are members here at VUU who are especially good listeners and will be there for anyone who wants a friend to talk to. Here in the sanctuary, we'll have Rosalind Hawkins. There she is. Hi, Rosalind. She'll be in front of the grown-up comfort room in the front here if you'd like to go and speak to her. And on Zoom, you have Joyce Donahue, who will introduce herself through the chat window and tell you how you can get in touch with her. Now, I'm going to move into introducing, again, our interim minister, the Dr. Reverend Fred Wooden, who will be presenting the service today. And he is on his third part of a three-part series about Christmas, and specifically about the story of Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge, and the ghosts that haunt him. So just to give you a quick recap, in case you didn't remember or missed some parts, in the first week, we pondered the concept that the ghosts of the past who haunt us may very well just be our own memories, replaying mistakes we've made that we regretted, or things we'd said or didn't say, or did or didn't do that we wished had gone differently. And then as we think back on them, they're like ghosts that haunt us. So we probably want to do more good decisions and less bad decisions, and then we'll have less ghosts haunting us. Another lesson from Christmas Carol is about the importance of wealth, or the lack of importance about wealth. The fact that money may not be the most important thing in life, as some people seem to think. Bob Cratchit and his family were very poor, but they were happy, while Ebenezer Scrooge had lots of money, but he was mostly sad and all alone. So we had some thinking to do about wealth and the meaning of life, and how wealth does or doesn't contribute to happiness or a full life. Now today, Reverend Fred says he's going to talk to us about Christmas leftovers. So I'm thinking that's going to be about food. Holiday foods make great leftovers, everyone knows, especially if it involves pie. And the Christmas Carol story, which we've been centering on again for this third time in a row, does have food in it, although I know that Reverend Fred prefers plant-based diet. And most of the food in the Christmas Carol involves, there's a feast with a small goose, there's a big turkey dinner, Mrs. Cratchit makes a triumphant Christmas pudding, which almost certainly had either meat or some kind of animal fat in it. And I do know the story well too, maybe not as well as Fred, but I knew the story pretty well, and I've made a tradition of watching it each year. There is one vegan meal. There's a homeless family sitting around a campfire cooking baked potatoes, and that's their dinner. So there's the one plant-based meal that I can think of in that story. So I don't really know where this is going to be going and what the talk about leftovers is going to be, but I do want to quote a very wise warthog from the Lion King movie, who once said, "I love a story with food in it." So, Reverend Wooden, with that, you're on.
Oh, now what you don't know is that we maintain an online spreadsheet that includes all the titles and names of things that we're going to do. And Ken consulted that. What a good guy he was. He brought it all together. Now I'm going to tell you a story to explain something. And yes, I'm going to take liberties today because I can, it being a more relaxed Sunday. There's the story in the Jewish tradition about the famous Talmud Chacham, that means wise in the ways of the Talmud, who would go from city to town and explain the Talmud to the townspeople. He had a servant who would drive him each and every time, and over time he began to see the pattern of the wise man. And at some point he said, "Reb Moshe, what do you say next time I play the Chacham and you play the driver, because I think I can do as good a job as you?" And the Chacham said, "Okay." So they switched places, they arrived in a village, he began to answer questions, and he was good, because he'd heard all these questions before. He was doing one thing after another, and then a young man, a student at a yeshiva, got up and asked a question so abstruse, so esoteric, so remote, that the driver was flummoxed. He pulled at his beard and said, "You should not have to ask me that question. It is so simple, so elementary, so obvious that I'm going to make my driver answer that question." What Ken does not know, poor driver that he is that I'm not going to speak about the Christmas Carol today, but you did such a good job that I don't need to do it. In fact, I'm going to be telling a second story, which actually is the second part of the story I started on Christmas Eve. What does that have to do with the offering? Nothing. And everything. Every story, every welcome is itself an offering. It is a nourishment of heart or soul. You don't get to do the talking this morning, but your presence is required because a gift without a recipient is just a box, an envelope. It is the relationship that creates the value. So when you make an offering here today, even our friends at home, you're creating that spark of connection. And in these COVID times, we have to go some time between sparks, don't we? We can't rely upon seeing someone, being close to someone to remind us, to rekindle in us. In our hymn book where it talks about chalice lightings, there is a chalice lighting from Albert Schweitzer, a great religious liberal of the mid-20th century, who reminds us that at times our light goes out and we look for others to rekindle it in us. Every week that you give something, you are relighting the chalice for someone who needs it that week, whether you know it or not. And so whether you click, text, email, phone call, drop by, every gift is a flame, a spark, a light needed for someone in a time of darkness. With that in mind, I think we will be, do we have music to go with this? I have to see. We do. Great. Thank you, Lib. So the music will start and plates will pass out among you. Ha ha ha. And you will have a chance to light the flame. Oh, so we don't have something. I don't have my order of service. It vanished with his writings. I'm pointing as...
It's still up there. There's the centering music that we can use.
No, we will. So while the plates go about, we have something in this congregation, not uncommon in several congregations, called centering. I know I've mentioned this before, but if you're at home, maybe you haven't, or maybe our newest members of the community don't know it. Do you know Anne Morrow Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh's wife? And she wrote a wonderful book called Gift from the Sea, which I read year after year. It's a story about a woman at the seaside trying to get herself together after cooking, cleaning, and otherwise scattering herself. And she uses a word, Zerrissenheit. I love that word, Zerrissenheit. It's German for torn apartness. If you're a housekeeper, you know the feeling. Clean, cook, clean, change. You can't get your life together because it's being torn into little pieces of obligations. Now, that's not just homemakers. Anyone who's involved in life has too many things to do and feels they can't know which thing to do next. Centering is a moment when you can collect the pieces. You may not be able to put them together, but at least get them all in one place. Who you are as person, as male, as female, as neither, as homemaker, as bread maker, as parent, as all of those things. And remember that you are not any one of those, but all of them and more. You are not your tasks. You are not your identities. You are not your obligations. You're not even your desires or your emotions. At the center of that is you. Often overlooked, sometimes silenced, frequently ignored. And we give a moment here, too few moments, so that you, in the silence of your heart, surrounded by the forgiving presence of music, can breathe often enough just for yourself to be present just for you. Gather the fragments, friends, and be present for the Christmas wish.
I don't know if you believe in Christmas or have presents underneath the Christmas tree. But if you believe in love, that will be more than enough for you to come and celebrate with me.
For I have held a precious gift that love brings, even though I never saw a Christmas star. I know there is a light, I have felt it burn inside, and I have seen it shining from afar.
Christmas is the time to come together, a time to put all differences aside.
And I reach out my hand to the family of men to share the joy I feel at Christmas time.
For the truth that binds us all together, I would like to say a simple prayer, that at this special time you will have true peace of mind and love to last throughout the coming year.
And if you believe in love, that will be more than enough for peace to last throughout the coming year. And peace on earth will last throughout the year.
When I was very young, there was a famous Unitarian Universalist by the name of Sophia Lyon-Fahs. Some of you may know the name. She was a great religious educator because she was among the first that thought of children as human beings, not as potential human beings. They were already people. And while they may not know as much as grown-ups, they had minds and hearts and feelings that were worth respecting. One of her readings is in our hymn book. It's about Christmas. But it reminds us that Christmas is really about more than Christmas. As a prayer, let me offer her words for you this morning. For so the children come, and so they have been coming. Always in the same way they come, born of the seed of man and woman. No angels herald their beginnings. No prophets predict their future courses. No wise men see a star to show where to find the babe that will save humankind. Yet each night a child is born is a holy night. Fathers and mothers, sitting beside their children's cribs, feel glory in the sight of a new life beginning. They ask, where and how will this new life end? Or will it ever end? Each night a child is born is a holy night. I suppose that means every night is Christmas, doesn't it? So while we want Christmas to be the day we actually are the people we thought we could be, we're not limited to that at all. I think the day after December 26th is just as holy as December 25th, don't you? And the day after that, and the day after that. Maybe one of our tasks as a community, wherever we are, is to bring the holiness of Christmas into all the days of the year. So maybe our prayer is to believe that. Believe that too. Believe in Christmas and believe that it could be every day. Our wonderful VUU video choir will now sing the state song of Maryland, except it's called "O Tannenbaum." You'll hear the wrong words, but as a Maryland native, I simply have to remember that it is my state song. But feel free to hum along to the other words if you prefer.
Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree, of the other branches. Oh Christmas tree, of the other branches. Not only green when summer blows, but in the winter when it snows. Oh Christmas tree, of the other branches. Merry, Merry Christmas. Oh Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches.
Oh, that looked like fun. And I want you to know, if you didn't notice already, that the arrangement was by the Pod brothers, who serve our congregation in Brooklyn, New York, where I used to work long ago. Now, because I have a story, I'm going to sit down. Let's make sure the microphone here works. Are we alive here? Turn it on.
It's on. Yep.
Is it really? Okay, let me turn it on. Are you there? Actually, I have to turn the battery on. Come on. There you go. Ah! Too many switches for a small-minded minister. I'm going to get this close to me so I don't have to try very hard. I don't like my voice when it gets loud. I kind of like it when it's soft. So I'll indulge myself. Down at the mission, they say Angela really is an angel. She says, "No, I am named after my grandmother," and she's right. I know because I've seen her picture. Right there on the mantle is a photograph taken about 1965, and in it you can see little Angela, who was no more than a toddler, and her mother Martha with her sister Mary and their mother Angela, 3 generations. I asked where the men were in the picture, and she said, "Oh, they're doing the dishes if I know Grandma." And she did, because Grandma Angela lived another 10 years. They say little Angela is the real angel because she's always doing for others. Not that she's some sweet thing who's always smiling and helping out, but because she gets things done when other people can't. It's kind of magic. Need a job, a meal, a home, a friend? Angela can make it happen. and does. I don't know how she does it, and I'm not sure I really want to know, but it's a fact that when all else fails, Angela doesn't. And that, friend, she also got from Big Angela. So maybe I need to tell you a little more. The mission is actually called Angela's Kitchen, and it is a restaurant. Big Angela started it back when Martha was a girl. There were good times then, and even colored folks, because Big Angela called herself and her people colored folks back then. Even they were doing better than before. Even in a town like Hackensack, New Jersey, there was work to be done, and so Big Angela began to make lunches for the boys going off to work. Young men without wives coming up from the South who didn't have family, and one thing led to another. So pretty soon she was not only making lunches, but pouring coffee and frying bacon, and well, you can figure out what happened. Anyway, what makes it interesting is what happened next. The crash came. And even white folks were down and out. White men who had never been in Blacktown before began to appear with their empty, hollow eyes that said they had no place to go and nothing to eat. Now, Big Angela had always been kind to the hobos and tramps who came by, hoping for a leftover sandwich. Word got out, and now there were more, many more. The story is that she marched up to City Hall and scolded the mayor so loud that he gave her the warehouse at Prospect and Hunter then and there, and food too. Truth is, she just took it. It was empty, and there were all these men wandering about, and so she gathered them up and said, "If you'll help me clean it up, I'll feed you, and you can sleep here until you get work." And the food, well, she sent Martha and her friends about to the butchers and grocers and asked for whatever they had left over. And this she made into stew and soup and who knows what else. Anytime someone said there's not enough, she would say, "When I was 9, I bought a chicken for 20 cents and made it last a week." Nobody believed her when she said it, but every week she proved it. Somehow, with a little money and a lot of horse trading, she turned that warehouse into a kitchen where some people paid to eat because the food was so good, and those that couldn't work there because they may work there making the food. Black and white they came because in Angela's Kitchen, everyone was the same. That was the only rule. Nobody was ever turned away unless they broke that one rule. Of course, this caused a ruckus in some parts of town. Were they not hard times, Angela's Kitchen might not have survived. Even her neighbors chided her, saying, "Why are you feeding those white boys?" And she would answer, "3 white boys saved my life once. Maybe one of them is here." That was Big Angela. Once her mind was set, nothing could stop her except time. After the war, times were not so hard. People moved away. Angela's Kitchen slowly died. Somewhere in the 1950s, there was a fire and the restaurant was destroyed, and just like that, it all came to an end. The smoke had hardly cleared before people began to forget. When she died, only a few were left who actually remembered. Instead of the hundreds who used to depend on her, only a few old men, some of them white, some of them black, came to pay their respects. Most likely, Big Angela would be forgotten now, but for Little Angela. And that's where the story gets interesting again. For you see, Little Angela lived and grew up with Big Angela, or rather, Big Angela lived with Little Angela and their mother. As it has ever been, Martha worked, so Big Angela looked after Little Angela, and the story goes that it was those days when they were alone, Big with Little, that Big Angela would tell Little Angela stories about the old days. Little Angela heard them over and over about the crash and the men in the kitchen and the chicken and who knows what else. Anyway, when Little Angela grew up, finished college and everything, she came home and said, "I'm going to open Angela's Kitchen." "Whatever do you mean?" her mother asked, wondering why a well-educated young woman would want to do such a thing. And Little Angela said, "I'm going to open Angela's Kitchen because there are people who need it, and I can help them. I have youth, education, and grandma on my side. I hope I have you, Mom." And she did. This time Angela did in fact march down to City Hall and demand the old warehouse. Only this time Angela had papers and deeds and stuff. And though the mayor, and sure enough the mayor did say okay, it was falling apart, that building, but you even might call it dangerous, but maybe this woman could do something with a building nobody else wanted, and besides there were lawyers this time. And she did. Somehow she managed to get a grocery store to move in and hire local people to staff it. Maybe it was because it cost next to nothing to build there. Somehow the zoning board approved it a little faster than was usual for them. Remember the lawyers? Maybe it was because she insisted on running the operation herself, and with her fine college degree, the owner said, why not? Anyway, Angela's Kitchen was now the name of a grocery store. And because little Angela ran it, they thought it was named after her. But she said, no, it's named after my grandmother. And when they asked why, she would tell them the story of Big Angela's Kitchen and the Depression. Now and then someone would say, I heard my father talk about it once, and people would come and shop there even when they lived in other neighborhoods just to check it out. One of those was a fellow who ran the bank because he was curious about this woman and her restaurant that was really a grocery store. And he remembered his grandfather who reminisced about a place by the railroad tracks as big as a warehouse where you could get the best food. So when little Angela learned that the banker had come, she went to ask for a loan to add a restaurant to the grocery. And the banker decided to give it to her, even though it was technically a little risky, but then there was no lawyers that she knew. And so Angela's restaurant had a restaurant again, and again the people who came paid for it because it was good food, good home-cooked food. And again, the people who ran it were those who were out of work or homeless, and little Angela saw that they were trained so they could work in other places. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. Where were those other places to work? And where would those homeless live once they had jobs and all? Little Angela went to the businesses around town and the schools, and with her fine college degree and her 2 businesses and her banker friend and those lawyers and her grandmother's name, doors began to open, and she somehow found jobs for those ready to leave the restaurant, and she found homes. Sometimes the banker or his friends would loan money to repair a broken down house here or there, and little Angela knew she could get the job done, and she would show up with a hammer and a bunch of nails herself. And little Angela was no longer little Angela at all. A few years ago, not long after the restaurant opened, little Angela, because she was still called little Angela, even though she had that fine college degree and the banker and the lawyers and the warehouse, told all her employees, we're going to close on December 22nd. The workers looked puzzled, which she knew, so she said then, we'll be serving a big dinner for the whole community, and we're going to sell tickets for $100, and we're going to give 100 of those tickets away to the people who can't be here because they don't have $100. And it happened just like that. Because little Angela was so good at what she did with her fine college degree and her business and her friend the banker and her grandmother's name and the lawyers, of course. And so people bought the tickets because the money would help Angela's restaurant and the grocery and the workers who worked there. So on that day, December 22nd, rich and poor, black and white, important and forgotten, sat down and ate together. And it was just like when Big Angela was alive, only now even the rich and the important came. And not only to eat, but to cook. You should have seen it. The mayor and the banker were peeling potatoes and chopping the greens. The fire chief rolled out the pie crust, and the police chief set the tables. People liked it so much they did it again the next year, and soon she had to find a new warehouse just for that occasion. Every year on December 22nd, they have dinner at Angela's restaurant. And every year, someone asks her, why December 22nd? And little Angela smiles and says, well, let me tell you a story about when my grandmother was 9 and she bought a chicken for 15 cents and made it last a week. And when people asked her why she did this for anyone, white or black, she said, 3 white boys once saved my grandma's life. If they hadn't, I wouldn't be here. And oh, just so you know, they always serve chicken. And dessert always includes a piece of licorice. Oh, no. Closing music, "'Tis the Season," and other songs created by our own Arizona UU choir from all over the region. Shall we enjoy it before we finish our time together? That was lovely. Some words from my colleague Sarah Morris Campbell, which I'm adapting for this morning. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight, like the candles we light, the stars that we follow. So we gather them up each week and take them for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by the hope they offer, move into tomorrow, knowing that other lamps, lights, and stars will ever find us and follow us through the days of our lives. Ken, would you help us unlight the chalice?
It's time to conclude our service together. Please read these words out loud with me. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. Now, for those of you on Zoom, once we're finished there, you'll be invited into a breakout room where you can meet with a small group of randomly selected other Zoom people. Or decline the invitation, stay where you're at, and you'll be able to talk to some other people, perhaps Reverend Fred, and who will be happy to answer questions or help get you oriented. In the room, we have a welcome circle in the back if anybody would like to go and chat with Nancy, who's back there with the sign. And otherwise, we can all move ourselves to the outdoors and have plenty of social time before you say goodbye. So thank you for being here. Go in peace.
Thank